Hi everyone, in this video, we will be talking about ethnocentrism and relativism. So what is ethnocentrism and what is relativism or cultural relativism? First, let's talk about what is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is defined as judging another culture solely by the values and standard of one's own culture. It means that one culture judges other cultures in their actions, behaviors, customs, belief, or even languages and values by making their own culture as the center and the most important. Or it is judging other culture based from one's own culture which they think the norm or the standard. Ethnocentric individuals judge other groups relative to their own ethnic group or culture, especially with concerns for language, the way people speak, behaviors, the way people act, customs and belief and its religion in terms of faith in God and others. Those are factors why other culture judge another culture. But this ethnic distinction and subdivision serves to define each culture ethnicity's unique cultural identity, and not to be judged by other culture. According to William G. Sumner, ethnocentrism is defined as the technical name for the view of things in which one's own group is the center of everything, and all others are scaled and rated with reference to it. In other words, it is a belief that the norms, values, ideology, customs, and traditions of one's own culture or subculture are superior to those characterizing other cultural settings. In the study of anthropology, ethnocentrics are people born into a particular culture that grow up absorbing the values and behaviors of the culture will develop a worldview that considering their culture to be the norms, or think that their culture is the standard one. If people then experience other cultures that have different values and normal behaviors, they will judge those values and behaviors because they believe that the standard culture is their birth culture. It is difficult for them to see the behavior of people from different culture because they are accustomed to their birth culture. Example of ethnocentrism in culture is the Muslim culture and the Christian culture. For Muslim cultures, eating pork meat is against to them and they find not good in Christians people eating pork meat, where in fact Christians don't think about it. They don't believe that eating pork meat is a sin, while Muslims believe that eating pork meat is a sin. And now, let's move on to cultural relativism or simply relativism. Cultural relativism is the principle that an individual person's beliefs and activities should be understood by others in terms of individual's own culture. It is the ability to understand a culture on its own terms and not to make judgment using the standard of one's own culture. It is understanding cultural practice that are not typically part of one's own culture. It is response to West ethnocentrism, because the goal of this is to promote understanding cultural practices and not judging other cultures by making one's own culture superior. Cultural relativism was established and accepted in anthropological research by Franz Boas in the 20th century and later popularized by his students. Franz Boas argued that one's culture may mediate and thus limit one's perceptions in less obvious ways. He understood culture to include not only certain tastes of food, art, and music or beliefs about religion. He assumes a much broader notion of culture defined as the totality of the mental and physical reactions and activities that characterize the behavior of an individual composing a social group collectively and individually in relation to their natural environment, to other groups, to members of the group itself, and each individual to himself. So in general, ethnocentrism is the tendency to assume that one's own culture and way of life represent the norms or are superior to all others. And cultural relativism is the viewing of people's behavior from the perspective of their own culture. That's all, and thank you for listening.